This is the plaintiff, Antoinette Martin. She says the defendant, her intrusive neighbor, trespassed onto her property and cut down one of her trees without her permission. She thinks he has some nerve destroying her property. There's no way she's going to allow him to get away with it, and is suing him here and now for the $3,000 she's owed. This is the defendant, Dean Coleman. He says he did in fact do the plaintiff a big favor because the tree he trimmed down was a danger to his family because it was dead and rotten. He even discussed the cost of trimming the tree with the plaintiff. They agreed on a price, and instead of saying thank you to him, she's suing him? Please. He's accused of cutting things too close with a neighbor.
All parties, please raise your right hand. Be seated. Come to order, please. Litigants have been sworn, Your Honor.
Thank you, Douglas.
You're welcome, ma'am.
Antoinette Martin, you are neighbors with Mr. Coleman, correct?
Yes.
How long have you been neighbors?
I've been in my home for more than 20 years. I believe he's been my neighbor for 3.
Okay. Now, there's a tree in question that you are quite angry about. What happened? What according to you, did he do?
Okay, so one evening in February, I drove into my driveway, and I'm sitting in the car talking, and Mr. Coleman approached my vehicle, and he said, well, the tree on the right is okay. I just want to cut the branches off of it that are hanging over to my property. And then he said, the tree in the left side is dead. He said, I had someone come and look at the tree, and they told me it would cost $1,700 to take the tree down, and it would cost $800 to remove the branches. And so I said to Mr. Coleman, I will need to speak to my husband and other people. I'm not sure that tree is dead. I need to take a look at it. He said, okay, I'll see you on Monday. Monday came and went. I never saw Mr. Coleman again. He
Well, did
didn't
you speak
approach
to anybody?
me. I spoke to my husband and my parents. And we all agreed that the tree was not dead.
How does anybody know without, all right, go
Well,
ahead.
it's wintertime. Trees
well,
are dormant.
the fact that there's no leaves in wintertime, it's not how someone determines whether a tree is dead. You scrape and you see if there's green where you scrape, or I have a tree guy tell me. Do you tell him, no, I don't want the tree moved, or you don't say anything?
We didn't see each other,
okay, and then
so
what
I
happened?
didn't say anything.
So what happened?
So by Friday of that week, it was February 15th, when I came home, it was dark, but I looked in the backyard, and I see that the tree was cut down.
All right, so what had happened?
Okay, first off, it wasn't the first time I had gone to Mrs. Martin. Prior to that, I had a gate removed, and I went to Mrs. Martin as well as some of the other adjacent neighbors and told them I was going to replace the fence.
Okay.
And they all were, they all approved it, and they were actually happy. Now, this tree actually stands on the property line.
On the property line?
Yes, and having to when putting up the new fence, the fence personnel had to actually go around the trees.
Really?
Yes. So
they had to, or they did
They
avoid?
had to avoid them by going around and encroaching back onto my property to avoid the trees. So I had the right at that point to trim the trees as far as their trunks that was obscuring the line. I didn't do that, just to be, just out of courtesy, I left them as is. But upon living there for 2.5 years, I noticed that every other day, debris and branches were falling onto my driveway, my side door, where I have to use to access my home. My child accesses the backyard and the side yard. So it's a danger in terms of property, in terms of people. So that's when I said, you know what, I'm going to trim the trees, just what hangs over my line.
Do you have anything from an arborist saying the tree was dead?
Correct.
No, I didn't. If you do, then show it to me. If that is correct, you do have. Do you have anything from an arborist saying the tree was dead?
Not anything in writing, no.
Well, how are you going to prove that?
Well, again, I have the receipt from.
No, that proves you paid X to kill it. That doesn't prove it was dead, and that's why you killed it. This is the tree.
That is the tree.
It's just
there
a stick.
There are 2 trees.
Do we have a picture of this tree before it became a post?
I have it in
I have photos.
Google Maps.
Okay, but I can't.
So what you see there is a tree that's on the neighbor's property that is in fact dead, and they removed it.
You want to go over there and show me what you're saying?
Sure.
Yeah. What tree did he cut down?
This tree.
The one with all those leaves on it?
Yes. It's behind this dead tree. This is an old photograph from Google Maps. And this tree...
How old is this photograph?
2015.
Okay, well, that big, bushy, luscious thing gave leaves like that when for the last time?
Last summer.
But then why would he say that it's dead? He's lying?
I think he is.
Okay, go ahead and go back. She says that it's that big bushy one back there.
That's not a recent photo. I have recent photos. of
Okay,
the
let me
tree.
see that. Please step over there, if you would.
So you can see here the new fence put up last year. So you can see this is a recent photo.
Right.
That's the tree even prior to the fence being put up. You could see this arm was snapped off, broken off. The arm that stood over her property. Now the piece that's still intact is above my property. I attempted to just trim it.
Where did you cut it?
Right here below, just below where the branches are. And
Is
now
that
you can
accurate?
clearly see the rot on the body of the tree
Is this picture taken from your yard or her yard?
from my yard.
From your yard. So this has nothing to do with the accommodation. Okay, the accommodation's back here for another tree.
No, there's a small accommodation for this tree first there, and then another one for the second tree.
Because this fence goes like this and then comes in 6 inches the rest of the way to accommodate this one. So this would be where the property line is?
Correct.
So is the fence on the property line?
As far as I know.
Okay. The new fence that he built, is it also on the property line until he starts to accommodate trees?
Yes.
So that means the trees are on the property line.
I'm not sure. I have to get a surveyor at this point.
Do you have a survey?
Not with
Do
me.
you have a survey?
I
Not
don't.
with you. You have a survey, but you didn't bring it to court?
Well, I didn't realize I would need that.
Well, I don't know why you wouldn't realize that you would need that. If you're being sued for knocking down trees that are on the property line, they're half yours. You didn't think about that? Go ahead and go back to yours. So, is it your position that she gave you authority that day, or?
Yes. Now let me tell you how the story went when I met with her. There was no, don't do it. Let me talk to someone.
No, she
never.
Well, she says she
never
never told you to
resisted
do
or
it.
no,
but
she
never told you
resisted.
to not do it.
She was actually a proponent towards it. She
What is
said.
I want to hear her words. What do you
exact
say she
conversation was, okay, so I spoke to a tree guy and he said, the tree is dying, we need to remove the tree because
That's
the
you.
danger is, yes, a storm could knock it over into my property. Well, you know what? It did break off prior, and something with the other neighbors before, so maybe you're right. How much did they say? I said $1,750. This is why prices was discussed. $1,750 for total removal, $800 for a trim. $1,750, boy, that sounds like a lot. You know what? Maybe I can work with the $800. All right, so I tell you what, I'll come back to you on Monday and we figure out how much of it you're willing to contribute. Okay, no problem. Came back on Monday, long story short, she wasn't there. So I said, all right, in my mind, I already have permission from her. I'm going to foot the bill and pay for the tree, and then if anything, neighborly, we figure out the difference later.
Okay, now according to you, they trespassed on your property to cut it because you never gave authority. According to you, she did give authority. She just
Absolutely.
hadn't settled what price,
Correct.
if any, she would pay
Yes.
towards it.
I promise you, Your Honor, had she said, no, you cannot chop the tree or
No, you
whatever the case
strike
may
me
be,
as that kind
I
of
would've-
guy when I see a fence going, around trees, because if it was me and I had a survey that showed that my fence was on the property line, the trees would be gone.
Like
and I'm
to-
entitled to put the fence on my property line, so.
I like
yeah.
to preserve nature.
Yeah, I got it, and that's fine. My concern, okay, is, when you say, well, I didn't say yes and I didn't say no, I know from looking at the fence that he's the kind of guy who talks to people. So it sounds like you were all for this until the day you weren't.
Welcome back to the People's Court. Harvey Levin here. So, if a tree is on your neighbor's property and it's dead, and they won't cut it down, and you think it could fall over on yours, can you go on their property and cut it down?
Maybe not in their property, but it can cut what's like moving over to your property. If trespassing, you'd have to cut it down. But it happened to me. Her tree fall under my property. I caught it, and then fall under her pool. And then she came to my property trespassing and said she's going to sue me. How's that?
Ladies and gentlemen, we will take a commercial break for this telenovela. Going inside the courtroom.
The tree got cut, and you want $600 for tree trunk removal, $100 for the planting of a new tree, and $2,400 for trespassing onto your property, right?
Yes.
Okay, how did it hurt you to the tune of $2,400 to have somebody step onto your property?
Well, it was a very stressful situation. Yes, I discussed the previous neighbors because the other tree one time the branches were hanging on that house. The previous neighbors simply cut the branches off, which is their right to do, and they never said anything to me.
Yeah, that is their right.
As far as I am looking...
How is this that much different? Because we know that one branch is the one that's broken off already from the storm, and that does cause trees to rot, okay? That one is over yours, and then the other one is over his yard. And if he had to accommodate it to not kill it because he's a nature lover, I just don't see where you think that cutting that tree that was half dead, that's on a property line that appears to belong to both of you, somehow entitles you to $3,000 when the part that's over your side is dead already from the storm. It doesn't. My verdict in this case is for the defendant.
Well, the judge finds the plaintiff did not have enough ammunition to prevail in this case. Ms. Martin, nobody mentioned anything, but do you think one of your problems is the tree looks so stupid the way it is right now?
Probably.
I mean, if he had taken the whole thing out, would you have been as upset?
Still would be upset because the tree is on my property. It is not on the line.
Well, you couldn't prove that.
Yeah, I know.
You didn't have.
I don't have a survey.
You didn't have a survey. He said it was on the property line. The judge agreed with him. So you don't have ammunition.
It's unfortunate.
Yeah. So what are you going to do now, though? It does look kind of silly.
I'm going to get a survey,
Yeah.
and I'm going to re-enter this to civil court.
Well, you've already lost the case. It's over now. But what about that tree standing there like that, looking like a post, as the judge
Yeah, I
called it?
have to get it removed.
Yeah, no kidding. It does look kind of silly. All right. Sorry you
Thank
lost
you.
the case. Okay. Good enough. All right, Mr. Coleman, do you think your troubles are over? I mean, you may have won this. Do you think you'll hear more from her?
Hopefully it's over. Just want to be peaceful and neighborly and,
Would you agree, though, that the tree looks silly the way it is right now?
It does. Judging from her response to having it trimmed, God forbid I had it removed, she would have definitely wouldn't have been able to contribute anything to the $1,750. So,
Well, it's going to have to
I'd be
come
willing
down.
to help her remove it. I mean, I have the
Hey,
tree.
why don't you tell her?
personal- Oh, of course.
Go tell her that. Maybe that'll ease the situation a little bit.
Hopefully.
Something's got to be done with
Yes,
it. 'Cause
yes.
It looks pretty bad. For both of you.
Yes, it
Okay.
does.
Thank you
All right,
very
thank
much.
you. Thank you very
Okay,
much.
good enough. All right. Harvey?
Okay, Doug, I mean, you are allowed to cut to the property line, and you can cut off all the branches to the property line, but you can't enter the property without permission.